We are just a few days away from this year's Rogue Invitational. It's going to be the highest paying strongman competition of all time. Stay tuned till the end to find out how much. So just a few days away, we are heading out to Texas tomorrow. Cannot wait to get out to the Rogue Invitational. An amazing show the last few years. The lineup is incredible. We know what the events are. Some new events, some events from last year. Rogue always do a great job with making these visually impressive events. So I'm really, really excited. We want to bring you all the information, athletes that are competing, the events, who we think you should look out for. No predictions this time.
It's
a very hard comp to predict, looking at the lineup and the events. But let's dive straight into it.
So first up, we have a Rogue Invitational debutant in Thomas Evans, who placed 5th at this year's Arnold Strongman Classic.
Returning to the Rogue Invitational, he came second 2 years ago. Can he make it first this year? Tom Stoltman.
Then we have the current world's strongest man, Mitch Hooper, who placed 3rd at this competition last year.
Former 3rd place at World's Strongest Man, also from Canada, Maxime Boudreau.
Last year's champion, Alexei Novikov, is returning to the competition, the only athlete to have competed there all 3 years.
Someone that missed out last year, but he's a former competitor here, placing 4th 2 years ago, the one and only Terminator, Mateusz Kiliaszkowski.
And another very exciting newbie to Rogue competitions. This year is the first time we will see Evan Singleton compete at the show.
A man that's consistently a threat at any competition these days. 2nd place last year at the Rogue, Trey Mitchell.
Next, we have America's strongest man, who was also 3rd place at this year's Arnold Strongman Classic, Bobby Thompson.
And finally, a man that was 3rd at last year's Arnold Classic, Luke Stoltman, returns to the Rogue Invitational. Fantastic lineup, 10 incredible athletes. Unfortunately, Pavlo Nekonechny pulled out a few months ago. Thomas Evans was the replacement, but Thomas has had a great year so far. Obviously 5th at the Arnolds. Brilliant replacement here. I think this is a really, really exciting competition. When we go through the events, you'll start to really see why. It's almost as if the Rogue team have sat down, looked at all the athletes, decided to pick out events that athletes are really, really good at, and make sure that this is going to be an exciting battle.
Should we have a look at the events then? Because they are starting on Friday. The first event starts at 12 p.m. on Friday, and it's a returning event. It's the Tower of Power deadlift for reps. I believe it's going to be the same weight as last year, 900 pounds for reps.
900 pounds for reps. The athletes have been told no suits, no
power briefs.
Power briefs as well. So that's last year they were allowed briefs. This year apparently no briefs. It'd be interesting to see if that makes much of a difference. But last year's winner of this event obviously isn't in this competition, so it could be an interesting one. I don't really see an absolute banker as a favourite for any of the athletes. I think this one could be a good battle between a number of them.
I think it's going to be close. So the names I would expect to see right up there would probably be Mitch Hooper, Tom Stoltman, Bobby Thompson and Trey Mitchell.
Yeah, and if he can kind of still perform as normal, I'd say Novikov as well. Sometimes without the briefs, he's not quite as good. We also don't really know what kind of shape he's been in.
We don't. And you never want to leave Alexei out of a prediction or just even a discussion when it comes to the best guys, because he's so good.
He is so good. And 2 times he's competed here, 2 times he's been on the podium. Obviously, he is the current champion. I'm sure he wants to come in shape. Event number 2 on the first day, starting at 3:20 p.m, is the bull pull. Now, this is a new one.
Bull pull.
The bull pull. The iron bull pull. This one looks fun. It's kind of like a truck pull, I guess, but it's a sled more than a truck pull. No rope, just the harness. The athletes have to pull this iron sled 15 meters as fast as possible.
How does not having a rope change things?
It depends, because the rope allows you to use a lot more arm
So
power.
no rope in the hand?
No rope
so
in
you're
the
not
hand.
talking about harness?
No, they're still harnessed onto the implement, but there's no rope in the hand that you'd pull with normally in a truck pull. Now, on a normal truck pull, this event tends to favour the bigger guys, because body weight is a bit more of an advantage when you take away the rope. But being on the sled, who knows? You know, until they get there tested out, it's a very difficult one to predict, because arm over arms and truck pulls can vary a lot. So you can have one result where it's much, much lighter and it's about speed. You can have another event where it's much, much heavier, more strength comes into it, body weight can come into it, technique as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one. The implement looks really cool. hard one to predict.
And you say about body weight being an advantage, and we know that's true, but Mateusz Kieliszkowski has always been brilliant at any type of pull. Do you remember 2017?
Especially with a rope.
World's Strongest Man. With a rope, yeah, I guess.
There's no rope this year, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Trey Mitchell looks like he's coming in absolutely massive to this competition.
Yeah.
Tom Stoltman, big, powerful man. He's good on the kind of Wheel of Pain type events, truck pulls. Obviously, Mitch Hooper won the truck pull at World's Strongest Man this year.
You would expect Thomas Evans, with his background, to be good at something
American
like this as
football
well.
background. It's, again, another hard event to predict.
So the final event on day one is called the Ultimate Log Medley, and it starts at 6:15 p.m. Now, it's a bit of a twist on a previous event at the Rogue. It's going to be a Fingles finger into log. So previously they've done the yoke into log. The log has to be done for 3 reps. That's 160 kilos. We believe it's 2 Fingles fingers this year. And it's very interesting how they pair these types of events, because before the first year, we were a bit like, a yoke into log, are they mad?
Yeah.
But actually, it's been a really fun event to watch and see how the athletes cope with that.
It was an event that the first year I wasn't sure about.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, it sounds a bit strange, but when it actually happened, really enjoyed it. The first year we had Kieliszkowski, who was unbelievable at it.
Yeah.
Last year, Mitch Hooper, even faster than Kieliszkowski was the year before. It's very interesting that they've kind of removed the yoke aspect of it and put the finger in. How much does that change things? The yoke obviously kind of takes it out more of the legs. The finger will take it more out of the shoulders and triceps. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects them moving onto the log.
And we've got some great Fingles fingerers here. Obviously, Tom Stoltman is very good at this event. I would expect Mateusz Kieliszkowski to be good too. Mitch Hooper, it was his worst result at this year's World's Strongest Man, but Mitch Hooper being Mitch Hooper, he learns very, very quickly, and I'm sure it's probably going to be a strength by now.
It's a hard one to predict. Obviously, Mitch on the yoke, we know how good he is. The finger, will it affect him? We'll have to wait and see. But it is just fascinating to see how the team kind of put these events together. And, you know, we've seen that Kieliszkowski and Mitch extremely good on the yoke. So they've removed that aspect, put a completely new implement in there. And we see that repeated through this competition with athletes that are really good on certain events, or they've performed really well at these events in the past. They've suddenly been removed to a different element. So it's going to be interesting. Day number 2 starts at 9:30 with the Rogue Coaster. We saw this event last year. One thing they have done this year is put an extra bag in to make it heavier. So that could be an interesting element. How much harder is that extra weight going to be on the athletes? We saw last year that almost after one went, they kind of learnt from each other. I think the fact that
not easier,
they got more experienced,
better,
and you saw kind of people getting better and better. And I think the athletes that have used it before will learn from that. The ones that haven't will have been able to watch.
Yeah.
When it's a completely new bit of kit, you do find things improve very quickly for the athletes. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. It's almost like you can't use last year's results, because every single one of them will have watched and kind of picked up tips and kind of understand how to be better this time round.
And there's 5 athletes who are competing this year who weren't there last year, and that is Mateusz, Evan, Thomas Evans, Tom Stoltman, and Luke Stoltman. So it's
they would have all watched though.
Oh, they would have been watching. I'm sure, they've very recently been watching it back as well. But last year's event winner, Martin's List, is obviously not here this year.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see who's going to take this one this year. Now, an event I'm really excited for is the return of the Apollon's wheel. We saw it at the Arnold's many, many years ago. This was an event that Zydrunas Savickas used to absolutely dominate. I'm super excited to see it back in a major competition. It's going to be 180 kilos. I believe the time limit is 2 minutes, and the athletes have to clean and press this beautiful axle as many times as possible. So we've got some big pressers in this competition, the likes of Trey Mitchell, the likes of Bobby Thompson. Luke Stoltman, we know how good his log lifting has been in the past. He's looking like that pressing is getting better and better. Tom Stoltman just recently was the winner last week on the log for Max, excluding Iron Bibby in the Giants Live. Mitch Hooper really likes the axle. That athletic ability that he has kind of crosses over much better to an axle than it does on a log.
I was going to say, it's a very different event to a log, isn't it? Even though it's still an overhead.
The real element of difficulty on the axle is the clean.
Yeah.
Getting that bar from the floor up to the stomach, up to the shoulders. You can't roll it like you can with the log, and it tends to be very draining. You might see someone do a good first rep, and then suddenly that power kind of drains very, very quickly. So for me, very hard to predict again. I think Tom Stoltman will be good at this.
Yeah.
I do. He's got good mobility for such a big man. He's looking very, very powerful. I think Mitch Hooper as well. I know Bobby is looking very, very strong overhead. I'd expect Trey Mitchell to be good at this. He is bigger than we've ever seen. He's got that kind of Zadrunas-esque type physique. We've seen him pressing the log at the Arnolds comfortably. Yeah. As long as he's clean as powerful.
He won it at the Shore Classic, the log as
well.
Yeah,
I'd expect big points of Trey on this one.
Mateusz Kieliszkowski, always very strong overhead as well, but it'd be interesting to see, obviously, post-injuries, how that's looking now.
Yeah, and, we talk about athletes or the team taking out events.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, the overhead was the dumbbell. The Sear dumbbell. Novikov absolutely blitzing that event.
Yeah.
No dumbbell this year. They've put the axle in. How much does that affect his results? Because we know how good he is on the dumbbell. Can he get the same type of points on an axle? I'm not convinced he can.
So the final event of the competition is on Saturday and it starts at 5 p.m. It is the Jewel, which is a sandbag carry event. Now, it's an elimination event, isn't it? So some strongmen are going to have to go multiple rounds for maximum points. I think it's 3 rounds in total.
Yeah, very interesting the way that they're doing this. It's 3 sandbags, gets very, very heavy. I believe the last one's like 170 kilos, might even be heavier. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure on the distance. But after doing these 5 brutal events and finishing, having to potentially do this 3 times, this is a brutal way to finish.
Yeah, nasty.
It's a hard one again to choose a winner. I mean, you kind of think very quickly. Tom Stoltman looked really good at the loading last week. He's got that huge wingspan. I know that Kieliszkowski is really good at carrying big
some very
sandbags.
Heavy bags.
I think he was doing like 190 kilo sandbag, something like that.
Mitch Hooper won the Husafell sandbag for distance, quite a different event, but he won the
event, but normally,
carry.
I mean, he had a big mistake last week at the Giants Live on the loading, and he'll want to put that right. You know that straight away.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a tough one for some of the shorter guys with a shorter wingspan. I think, you really need to be able to get your hands around this sandbag to get it high enough and then carry it the distance. If it's kind of dropping down, if it's kind of bashing into your legs, it drains you much, much quicker. So I think those guys with the long arms are going to benefit on this one. That's the events for the competition. I think we could see real battles. Now, we've mentioned names here, but I think the key to this competition is consistency.
Yeah.
And although I haven't mentioned him in any of the individual events, I think Evan Singleton doesn't actually have a weak event.
No, he doesn't. And Evan is taking this so seriously as well. He had the opportunity last weekend to compete in the Giants Live World Tour final. It is not like Evan to not do a competition like that.
No, absolutely. He's really focused on this. Yeah. I think Tom Stoltman looked fantastic last weekend in Glasgow. If he's got that same focus and recovered fully for this one, he's going to be a threat. Last year's champion Novikov is a big question mark right now. What kind of shape is he in? If he's coming in top shape, even if he was in top shape, I don't think these events this year are as good for him as last year's events.
No, I agree. Yeah,
I think Mitch Hooper is always a threat in these type of competitions.
And this is a competition he 100% wants to win.
Absolutely.
Trey Mitchell as well. He's looking very strong.
If you've followed Trey's training, he is bigger than he's ever been. Yeah. He's coming in huge for this. I think he's over 400 pounds.
Good for this competition?
I think some events yes, and some events no. He's kind of almost done like the training that guys would have done for the older Arnold competitions when it was super heavy.
But to be fair, we saw Tom last week and we thought, bloody hell, he's come in massive, and it didn't hurt him there, did it?
Didn't hurt him at all. He looked powerful. Although he's looking big, he looks good with it. It's quality size that he's put on.
He's not like wheezing and huffing. He seems quite fit and in shape.
Absolutely. So it's a competition that, it could go any way. Yeah. One mistake by an athlete is going to cost them. That consistency is going to be so, so key. And with no sort of bankers for anyone, I think we could see the most exciting battle of the year so far.
So you mentioned in the intro that this is the most prize money we've ever seen in a single strongman competition. Yeah,
$319,000 up for grabs in this competition between the 10 different athletes, and $145,000 for the winner. So it's really cool to see that Rogue are constantly trying to push the prize money up each year, build the sport up, create these new events. it's an exciting time to be a strength athlete, and you can see why so many of the athletes want to get to these shows.
100%. And you know, the great thing about a Rogue show, you just know Strongman's in safe hands. Like, not only does the equipment look great, we've got the free live stream, which is always completely seamless. Great payday for the athletes. Like, who wouldn't want to do a Rogue competition?
Tempted to compete myself.
Nah, let's not get carried away.
Talking of that, there is the third day of the Rogue Invitational, where they have the Rogue record breakers.
Let's go through those, because they're all happening in quite quick succession this year. There's like one section dedicated to the Rogue record breakers, starting with the max sear dumbbell, which is, to me, a little bit surprising, because that's a big event. That is
a big event, and it'll be interesting to see if the athletes are going to compete. Some of them do. We saw it last year. The dumbbell is a tough one, though. After already you're doing the log, you're doing the axle, I would be surprised if any of the athletes feel they are ready to break a record after doing the whole competition.
I know, but
especially an overhead record like that.
We've got Kiliashkovsky and Alexei there, like two of,
Yeah, and I can't see it.
No.
I'd love to big them up and kind of, give them that build up that maybe they deserve if it was just solely focused on that. But after a 6-event competition with 2 overheads already, plus Kiliashkovsky was not, what we'd expect at World's Strongest Man.
No.
Novikov has not looked that great in his last 2 competitions. I'm not counting them out. They've had time to improve and do well at this competition. I just don't think they've had enough time to do really well at the competition and come and break this record.
All right, fair.
I know I'm putting a downer on it, but I just can't see it. However, there is the Dinny Stone hold and Thor's hammer as well happening.
Yeah.
So we could see some records on that. Mitch Hooper is really trying to convince me to do the Dinny Stone hold.
You should. You could beat him.
Shh, we don't want him to think that.
Does he have the record on the Dinny replicas? Did he do it last year? I know he did it. Yeah, he took the record.
He's got the record, so you never know.
You should have a go, Lasse.
We'll see. I might have to do the commentating anyway, so...
But they could give you a headset instead of a mic.
Who wants to see Mitch Hooper and me go head-to-head on the Dinny Stone hold? Make sure you let us know down below in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let us know as well who you think is going to win this competition. It's a really, really hard one to predict. We know how good Tom is looking right now. Trey is looking massive. Mitch Hooper is on his 12 podium streak. Novikov is the current champion. Evan Singleton just looking like a man possessed right now.
Man.
Whole host of great athletes competing. I think it's going to be a good one.